Hi, my name's Jon Hare. I'm the designer of games like Sensible Soccer, Cannon Fodder, Whizball, Parallax, and Sociable Soccer, and I listen to the One Up Gaming podcast.
Stay sensible.
Right then, so we're back. One Up Gaming, episode 400. It's me, David, and we've got a massive guest again. I think you must be one of our more regular sort of guests we've had on this show. So anyway, introduce yourself and talk about your amazing gaming catalogue.
Hi, I'm Jon Hare. I've been around for a while. I was one of the founding members of Sensible Software back in the 80s. So we did Parallax, Whizball, Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit, Micropro Soccer, Megalomania, um, WizKid, Sensible Soccer, Sensible World of Soccer, Cannon Fodder, Cannon Fodder 2, Sensible Golf, and then we sold the company to Codemasters. And then I've done a bunch of consulting on different games. We did mobile versions of Sensible Soccer and Cannon Fodder. We did a Sensible Soccer, one in 99, one in 2006 with Cody's. I've done, let's see, Speedball 2HD, Speedball 2 Evolution, which were like on the iPad and also on the PlayStation, I think, versions of the Bitmap by the Speedball. I've done a bunch of other consulting things, Casper the Friendly Ghost, Eminem's Adventure, Doctor Who game, Showtime Boxing, a Real Madrid game, Weekend Football, one of my friends' games, another golf game with a game track, which was like an old fashioned thing with a glove on. Most recently, done Word Explorer, which was a word game I did, and then for the last 8 years, I've been working on Sociable Soccer, which is a new football game. So that's what I'm still on. But now, yeah,
Yeah, I
rules
mean,
versions.
I remember when we first started talking about social soccer, and there was a Kickstarter, and then things happened, and that didn't go well. And then you must have had a contract with Apple Arcade because I think it moved from PC development over to the Apple Arcade.
Yeah,
And then you must have had 3 or 4 years as an exclusive deal with them. Because I think it started in, was it
yeah,
2018,
that's right.
2019?
2019, yeah, we had an exclusive. We're actually, so we still are under the exclusive for mobile under them. We can't do anything other than Apple Arcade on mobile until the end of this year. But come the end of this year, we can actually do mobile outside of Apple Arcade for the first time. Uh,
Apart from is it China or somewhere where you've got like a,
yeah, China. The China version was odd because it never actually came out. It got close and never came out for whatever reason. Um, the Steam version has been out since the end of last year. We haven't pushed and publicized it very much because we've been waiting for the console versions to be ready, which is where we are now. So we've been waiting to do a bit of a push behind the console versions, and we've been slowed up a little bit by some of the protocols going through some of the um, console manufacturers. But we do have now an approved Switch version, uh, and we are on the edge of having an approved version for PlayStation and for Xbox. And they will actually be coming out pretty soon. I'm not going to say exactly when because we're literally about to do a press announcement about this very soon. But what I can say is that it'll be out sooner than people think. We've been very quiet about it because we've been waiting to see how it aligns, but we're about to do an announcement probably later this later this week. I think we plan to do it. Yeah. No,
perfect.
no, it might be early next week. Now we might push
Right.
it to next week. So at the moment we're you know we're working with some different partners. Uh, both on the development side and a bit on the publishing side. We've got a little bit more going on. Again, we're going to announce what we're doing with that, so I'm not going to say it now. But we've actually got a little bit more power recently. So we've got a bit more development power. We've got a little bit more financial power, and that enables us to do a bit more with the game. To finally get Social Soccer 24 out on the consoles and also on the PC version. We've been holding an update back, waiting for the consoles, and we've been in test for a long time, particularly with Sony actually, which has kind of slowed it all down, which is a little bit frustrating. But we're nearly at the other side of that, and yeah, we're about to make a big announcement about a kind of licensing deal we've done, and then we're gonna tell people about the date that we're going to launch, and tell them all the other exciting things that are going on, and then work towards even more stuff for the end of the year. So we're very busy at the moment. We've actually expanded our team recently, so there's quite a lot of management to do on my side now, just keeping everyone together. But it's really exciting. We're planning all the new features of the game. We got a little bit more manpower, so there's a lot more we can do now. We're in a stronger position, probably the strongest position we've been with this game right now. So great.
So I remember speaking, it must be 2, 3 years ago now, when you were discussing about the console sort of versions, and
Uh-huh.
we mentioned the fact of it needs to have like cross-play. So if you have a PlayStation, you can play against people on the Xbox.
Yeah.
And I know that's more of a feature that the console manufacturers sort of like gate. But have you guys managed to get like crossplay available on the
Not for
consoles?
Social Soccer 24, no. The Social Soccer 24, we have some issues actually with the integration of the different friend lists from the various different formats and making that work, which is making some variance in what we can do between the platforms. By the time we get to Social Soccer 25, we hope to have all those problems resolved. And I would hope that by the time we get to Social Soccer 25, which isn't too far away, our plan is to release Social Soccer 25, nearer, sooner than this time in the year next year, because this one is very, very late right now. We're very late because we've had platform problems. So by the time we get 25 out, which should be with a bit of luck be on mobile as well, we'll hope to have had those problems sorted out. But right now they're not. No. But yeah, I think I can't categorically hand on heart say we will have cross-platform play, but there's a bigger chance of having it on 25. There's no chance on 24 right now.
Right.
There's time to sort it out.
Because I mean, I know nothing about marketing and all that kind of stuff. If it was me in your position, because Social Soccer 24, as you say, it's been delayed maybe about 6 months of how you guys wanted the game to actually originally come out on consoles. I would
Mm.
have this game, I'd take the 24 off for the Xbox, for the consoles, and just call it Social Soccer European Championship Edition. And the Americans call it the Social Soccer Copa America Edition. And then when it gets to like the September, October-ish sort of time, then call it Social Soccer 25.
That is kind of possible to do, except that when you book your stuff you're doing with unboxed versions, for example, you need to pre-order units 3 or 4 months in advance. I don't even know
Yeah,
that. So we're not that agile to like change this stuff. Like we are agile, but the platform holders are not agile, basically. And the stores are not agile. So we could do that, but I think we're going to persist with Social Soccer 24 just because that's where we are now. I mean,
yeah,
you're right. It's an odd time to launch Social Soccer 24 at the end of the season. Um, we could potentially rename it just Social Soccer on the consoles. Um, that I don't know whether that would be more or less confusing to people to have it different names in different places. I don't
yeah,
know. The Apple Arcade at the moment is called Social Soccer 21. Don't even know that.
yeah.
So It's very odd. It's very odd to manage these platforms. The It's not as simple as just pinging a new version up. Like if you're doing it on Steam or something, it's really simple because you can just make a new version, put it up there. No one's vetting it. No one's analyzing what you're doing. It's much faster. But on some of the
Yeah.
platforms, you're going under a microscope with everything you do, which is well, certainly with the Apple Arcade version as well. We didn't bother to rename it last time because when you renamed it, you had to like submit 1,000 screenshots to all be vetted. And at that time, when we didn't have time, we were just like, when you're a smaller company, all of these regulations you have to work through are harder to to manage. We're actually getting to a point where we are taking on more people on this publishing side, and we should be able to manage this stuff soon. But right up to now, we've been running on everyone doing about 6 jobs at this side, and it's quite hard to deal with these slower, more meticulous things. Everyone in the team kind of groans. So yeah, I mean, we'll settle. Hopefully, by the time we get to Social Soccer 25, we'll have settled into our rhythm. Yeah, unfortunately, there's been a bit of a hiccup on the console side. And I know people have been waiting, and we wanted them out in March. And if there hadn't been these problems, they would have been out in March. But we couldn't get them out in March. Then we couldn't get them out in May, and it's just, unfortunately, when you're with platform holders, you're not in control. They are. You just got to sit and wait what they say. And what actually happened was that Nintendo passed the game, and then Sony didn't pass it.
Yeah.
So what can you do? Depends. You're gonna be lucky. So
So I don't. I mean, like I've recently just released a couple of books, like coffee table books, 8.5 inches squared, like 290 pages, like one for the Sega Saturn, one for the Nintendo 64, and one for the PlayStation. It's like
yeah,
screenshots and small like paragraphs about each game, controllers, different versions of the consoles. And I mean, I put a good 6 months of prep, of effort, of getting it
hmm
all up and running. And you go on to like Amazon and you read some of the reviews. As I've stopped reading some of the reviews now. Do you actually still go through and read some of the reviews on Steam or anything?
on Steam, I actually been personally reading them and replying to everybody. We haven't. Again, we are just ramping up on the publishing side. We will have a community manager, a social media manager back, and we have had one in the past, but recently it's been very tight, and we've not had that. So again, like I say, we all wear many hats. Yes, I do, and some people write very intelligent, well measured reviews. Uh, some of the criticism is well aimed. Some of it is just it's great, we love it. Some of it is it's great, but blah blah blah. And most of the time, a lot of the features that the fans are talking about and the players are talking about are things that we know need doing, and we might be in the middle of doing them anyway. So
Yeah.
and then some people are just ridiculously critical and pointing out things which you never intended to be, or like the very worst criticism is um all the player names are in there, but all the club names and all the league names aren't in there. You know, now, I mean, the volume of licenses you need to acquire. If you look at FIFA, for example, or EA Sports FC now, it has 80 different licenses. That costs a fortune.
Yeah.
Each license is costing hundreds of thousands to millions. Imagine getting 80 of them. It's a substantial amount of money you're paying. Um, and we've got a great license in the FIFA Pro license. We have well over 12,000 players licensed in the game. Well over half of our players are licensed players, which is fantastic. So most of the best known players in the world are licensed in our game. Their photos are there, their names are there. They're on their player cards, and we've got a little model representing them. Not with individually fashioned faces yet, I might add, because that's obviously extremely expensive. But it's great, and that's more than most football games have got. And for people to go, oh, they've only got the player names, you haven't got the clubs and the club badges and that. It's a substantial investment, and sometimes you can't even get them because one of our competitors has like taken an exclusive on them. So we've been working to get a game which the player licenses look absolutely great in the game. I'm delighted with them, and the club names look great. You know who they're meant to be. Anyone who's played sensible soccer will know the kind of where we're aiming it at. And yeah, we've got a fantastic new endorsement for the game sorted out now, which we're about to announce, which I think everyone will be interested in and amused by and entertained by. So I'm quite happy that we've got that done. And for us, I mean, it's like being the little boys sitting at the big boys table sometimes. And we're in a position where we're lucky that with some of the recent developments, and I'll be able to talk about this a lot more next time we speak after we announce what we've just done. But basically, we're in a position where we've got a little bit more backing now. We've got from a very unusual source, we've managed to like empower ourselves, and now we can do more. But it takes a while to like, even if you put more manpower at something, it takes a while to like gel that all together and make it happen and bring stuff together. And we've been signed with various publishing companies, as you know, and we were signed with Kiss at one point, and then our deal with Kiss didn't materialize because a lot of companies are struggling out there, and Kiss was one of those companies as well. They just couldn't basically finance the whole thing properly for us at that time. So we've gone the route of self-publishing without really having a publishing team in the company. So to do this properly, we have been growing slowly a publishing team within the company, within the organization, so that we can take on all of the facets that are needed to make a game successful. And some of that is marketing and PR and managing all the storefronts properly and all that kind of stuff. So getting your pricing right, doing your sales deals at the right time, all things, to be honest with me, I'm mostly involved in game development. I've worked with publishers my whole life, brilliant publishers, but it's not really been my job. So now the job has been for us to kind of like grow this extra arm of the company, which has been fun, excellent. We're doing it right now. Like we're interviewing people now. We're taking different people on. We've got different roles. We're filling up, and it's really good fun. But it's taken a while. It's kind of come at the time when we've been finishing off these console versions. And then we've taken on this new development company. We've taken on more people, but now we've got more people to manage and plan. So like all your design plans for example, Social Soccer 25, we'll be putting in place for that and beyond 25. At the same time as we're finishing off 24, at the same time as we're building our publishing arm and talking to all the different platforms, it's a busy time for us. And I think that people are going to be very pleasantly surprised by Social Soccer 24 on not only on the consoles, but for the PC players, like the improvements that we've made. We've been taking in a lot of feedback that we've been reading. Like you asked me about reading those reviews. Yeah, we read them all, every single one. And I'm the person who controls the design of the game. And I take input from everywhere, including every single reviewer that I read stuff. Even if I hate it, I will still take it in and digest it because it's important. Otherwise, you might miss something. So yeah, we've some. I'll give you an example. One person was saying that they hated every time you score a goal in the game at the moment on the PC, a screen come up saying this player scored a goal and it's got his card and it had a background, and the background was kind of a medium color blue at the moment, but it can look quite bright. And he was complaining that the blue was always flashing. Now it's something that I hadn't picked up at all, that it might be an issue to someone. So then that made us experiment with different ways of presenting this. And in the end, all we did was use a different, darker tone of blue in the background. So we used the blue like a screen wipe. So you can, when you finish a scene and you got a camera and you want to quickly jump to another camera, you can, a trick is to use a screen wipe and jump the camera, right? So you need the screen to be filled with something for a period of time whilst you do that transition. and we've chosen this bright blue, and we've changed it to a darker blue now, so it's less jarring. So if you're more sensitive to like flashing lights or whatever, it's gonna bother you less, and it looks better graphically, and it's something I would never have picked up on at all without reading comments.
Yeah.
So when I read those comments, if they're easy wins like that, like tiny bits of work, like change your color, and it can make a big difference. Some small things. We've changed the aftertouch system, um, which was to do with changing a little bit about the goalkeeper code, so that we could free up the aftertouch system, which we've done. We've changed the goalkeeper animation system. We have changed the ball pairing system a little bit, I think. So we've picked up on some little foibles that there were in the gameplay, which are now fixed. It's the shooting's more fun. The goalkeepers are a little bit more fun there. What else have we been doing? Loads of little in this version, those bug fixes and stuff. There's been two very nasty bugs in the game, which we're hoping to get fixed very soon. They certainly need to be fixed before we release the new versions. There's a problem where, and this happened to only really top level players, you get a new player and as a lone player in your team, and for some reason he gets stuck on the pitch, and when you sub him off he just comes back on again. It's so annoying. Like, and he's the worst player in the team. You've got like loads of level 80 and 90 players, and there's this level 20 guy, and you sub him off and he just brings himself back in the squad all the time. So that this is an error to do with the communication between the server and the game. And when the game goes back to the server says no, he's still there, and just puts him back in. So we're beginning to that, and then we've got another very irritating bug. When you get to the very top league in the game, there's a miscalculation on your points at the end of the season, unless you've at the end of each week, unless you've completed an entire season, it basically relegates you automatically to the league below and takes some of your points away. And again, that's a really frustrating, annoying bug that has been a while being fixed, taking a while to be fixed. And it is frustrating for me that these things are there, but we've got a very technically complex game now. So it's a very delicate thing. A lot of things can go wrong, and sometimes they're platform specific, and sometimes they're like systemic. And then we're adding things. So, for example, what I can, sorry, I get confused because we're working on Social Soccer 25 now already, whilst we're finishing off 24. So we're putting some really cool things in Social Soccer 25 at the moment, which I think people are going to really like. So I guess I don't want to talk about those now, because I want people to talk about Social Soccer 24, particularly on the consoles. Will be coming out on Switch very, very soon. Is what I can say. Very, very soon. And the PlayStation and Xbox will be quite soon behind that. That's where we are right now. The Switch is the first out the gate. So
I think the plan before was roughly like the Switch was when we last spoke. The Switch was meant to be like November-ish sort of time, and then the Xbox that was January, February sort of time. So it was like 2 or 3 months
yeah.
after.
Hopefully the gap will be a bit smaller, but yeah, it's all been just pushed back. I mean, it's just we've been reconfiguring our development, shall we say, to minimize these problems for the future. But
Yeah.
we last year was not an easy year for us at all, because we hit a bunch of development snags, and we also had the problem with KISS just struggling to finance what we were doing. So it was a bit tough last year, but we survived it. We got through it. Yeah, a bit like my Sunday team.
So how is your Sunday team doing?
Well, so our Sunday team, Anglia FC, we're in the Cambridge MCR League. So we play against teams like St Edmunds and St John's College, Wolfson, the Department of Engineering. Cambridge Assessment are the best team in the league. They win it every year at the moment. They're the exam board in Cambridge. They're the second biggest employer after the NHS in the city. So,
Let me know.
because we're a university town, right? So, but we play in that league with all the colleges and stuff. And we have had a proud record since we got promoted. I think it was eight seasons ago to the top league. Uh, we've always been in the top half, and we've always been in the top six because the amount of teams changes. And actually, last year was the only year we dropped out the top five. Normally we're third to fifth, like every year we're between
Yeah.
third and then 2 years ago, we got to second, which was the first time we'd ever been second. I'm managing the team now as well as still playing a bit. Um, and yeah, so it was great. We got to second, our best ever performance. So I was really happy as the manager. And then the following year, we got six, which actually was our worst ever performance. And this year, we were like in sixth with one game left to go, having never, and we'd have been bottom half. So we've never been bottom half of the table. So we needed to win the last game of the season, which we did. We won, I think it was 5-2. Yeah, so we stayed with our record of always finishing in the top half. So for me, that was the stress out of the way. Yet again, we got to a cup semi-final and lost it, which is the same as last season. We had a very large turnaround of players, but we got some good players in, some good new young players actually, which is also good for our team. But importantly for me, I clocked up 200 appearances for the team this season, which is really very nice.
That's really nice.
So
So
yeah, at my age, that's not bad.
it's like what are you now? 58,
I'm
50?
58. I'm
Yeah.
58, and we're playing in the uni league, and some of the guys are in their 20s. Some of the guys are even teenagers. It's a variety of ages. Um, so the average age of the players is about 28, maybe 29, 30.
Yeah.
So just to be there, and you know, I've played, I think, about three or four full games this season. Normally, I come on for the first 20 minutes or so, and then I sub myself off because actually, as a manager, when you're managing and playing, you know, you make very rarely make managerial changes in the first 20 minutes or so. So I've worked out the way to do it is to basically start the game and then bring myself off as the first guy to get subbed off, which also sets a good example to the team that in our league you can rotate subs, so you can rotate on and off. Yeah, and by doing that, it kind of gives me a chance to like be at the side of the pitch and shouting at people for the rest of the match, which I kind of enjoy. Although this season has been harder than most, and the other thing is, you know, for anyone who manages a Sunday team, the rain this season has just destroyed. We had 7 matches, no, 6 matches cancelled because of rain this season. 6. So
Yeah.
you spend all the week getting all your players together and trying to get like 15 guys or 16 guys, basically, which is the number you need really to do a match with subs. Then you've got to organise a pitch. Then you've got to organise the ref. Then the opposition have got to organise it. And then a little bit of rain comes down and the groundsman says it's off. And that happened like in November and December. It was happening every week. It was so frustrating, you know.
Yeah,
So
it's I mean, I remember like when I was like 19, 20, 21. So I guess that's like 20 odd years ago now.
yeah,
Um, I was playing like Saturday League and Sunday League up in the northeast of England.
yeah.
And I think I was 21 and I sort of like ripped and shattered all my cartilage and my cruciate ligament
Yeah.
and it hurt that much. It was just like, yeah, I don't want to play football anymore. So
No.
I gave up quite early. I
One
used to
second,
love
mate.
it, though.
1 second.
Yeah.
Just need to cough. Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's a lot of people they get injuries, and what I've noticed is the general note. I played football as a kid every day, but I stopped playing at the age of about 14, 13, 14 in school playground. I just stopped. And I didn't start again until I was in my mid-20s. So I had about a 10-year, 12-year gap
Yeah.
when I was indulging in other stuff like playing music and finding girlfriends and other naughty stuff. And And when I started to go, I'm glad I started when I did. And I've noticed a lot of people are a bit like you. They played like a good standard when they're in their teenage years, like in those late teens, which is when I didn't play. And then they got an injury or they just went off it. And then they come back and then they're like, I'm not as good as I'm not as fast as I was when I was 21. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, of course you're not. You know, you have to adapt your game. And I think sometimes people lose years of playing sport, particularly a team sport like football, in their late 20s, 30s, and 40s when they could be playing, when they're still like doubting themselves because they're judging themselves against their 22-year-old self or whatever. And I think the reality of any sport, especially a team sport like football, you've got to adapt the way you play to how your body is. So, like when I was when we had our old sensible software team, which was in the mid 90s, I was playing as a centre forward,
Yeah.
and I was a centre forward because not because I wanted to be, but the guy who was best at football in our team said, "No, you should play up centre forward because you're the most suited for it." I mean, I've just gone back and back and back and back. Centre forward, then down to the right wing, then down to right back, then into centre back, or then I've discovered I'm a reasonably good goalie for certainly for five-a-side, maybe a bit for 11-a-side, so I'll go in goal sometimes. And I now go between being a goalie, a right back, and a centre back. But most of my time is spent. Well, this season we've been playing with a back three, which is great for me because just like the right hand side of a back three is just about the perfect position for me personally.
Yeah.
But normally I'll play as a centre back or a right back most of the time. But I can also play as a left back. Um, and I go in goal as the emergency keeper when the first two or three keepers can't make it, you know?
It's like when
Um,
when I was in the school sort of football team, I was like a centre back, but they discovered that when I went up at 11, 12, I never actually got any taller. So I was like 5'4" when I went up to secondary school. And when I left secondary school, I'm only like 5'6", 5'7". So I didn't really get any taller. So they moved me out to the right back. So I wasn't really needed
yeah,
to head of the ball.
it is useful as a defender to be bigger. I mean, when I was like 14, 15, I wasn't particularly big. And sometimes I forget. Like now when I play five-a-side, we play in a five-a-side league up the road here. Um, we're on target to be second in the league again at the moment. So if we won it last time, the Cats actually, I feel sorry for the team at the top now. They've cancelled it like a couple of times and they were top. And then if it got cancelled, so we're still technically champions, although I feel it's a little bit not quite fair on them. But anyway, we're second, but I forget that I'm big and quite strong, and some people find me a little bit physical. And I don't really play with the intent to harm anyone, but I guess I'm quite competitive. I like to try and win, and I know I'm not that fast. So you've got to adapt your game to like being physical and like physically being have a presence. And it's strange how you don't always perceive how you are to other people in a sport. You still think like one guy we play with. I don't know. He's about 6'5". He's quite big. He's a tall bloke. He's quite strong. But you talk to him, and he's like a little kid sometimes. He's always moaning about his ankles hurting and stuff. It's like, come on, Joe, just get on with it. So it's I love the football management aspect and working with different characters and you
Yeah.
know different people, and it's very rewarding when you get someone through. I spend my life managing game teams, managing the football team or playing the football team in a captain role, or you know being the writer and leader of a band. It's just what I tend to find myself in those
Yeah.
positions. So I guess that you've got to like people to be able to manage people, unless you're just a masochist.
Yeah. I guess you like the responsibility, but you've also driven to be able to push people in
I
the
like,
right way.
yeah. I mean, it depends on what it is. So it's interesting for me. Like with games, uh, I'm meant to be good at this. I'm good at it mostly, and I can be a bit of a control freak. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I push people. People can find me irritating because I tell them to do stuff again because it's not good enough. Um, but that's how you get the best results out of people. Um, some people don't like that process, uh, but that's how I work. So with games, my leadership is also um, making a lot of decisions, like important decisions, like discussions today on how we're going to price the games, and how this knock-on effect from console platform holders, some of them approving the game, some not, what we're going to do, when we're going to launch it, how we're going to price it, blah blah blah. They're major decisions that will affect the way the game goes out, and you've got to listen to input from loads of people around you to make the right decision. Because I'm not a marketing guy. I'm not someone who manages prices on the Steam page or the App Store or whatever. It's not really my bag. I mean, I can guess at a number, but to know the most effective way to do it and when to do the sales and all that kind of stuff, that's not what I do. I try and put together teams of people who are capable.
Yeah, it's like you need to be able to pick the best people for the other jobs that you not struggle with, but aren't as capable of.
Yeah, like I've never been a programmer, so I just need good programmers around me. That's the number one thing. But what I do is I do the game design and control that and creatively direct the game, and do a lot of the contracts. So a lot of the legal stuff, a lot of the stuff which if you're talking to someone about when you come and work for us to do marketing or to do programming or whatever it might be, generally it's me that will look at the contract drafting and the terms which we take someone on, those kind of things, so that how they get incentivized, how they're paid, what the terms of how long it's for, or what the conditions of payment are, whatever. And because when you're putting a team together, you've got to blend all these pieces. And if I look at the wider social soccer team right now, we have got a lot of people. So um, we have got four of us at like the core of the uh, production, design, the data for the game, and the server code. Then we've got another couple of guys who we use for a back end server thing. So that's six. Then we've got two or three guys that we've taken on who do our porting for us. So that's nine. Then we've just taken on 14 guys in the team to do all our main programming uh, to take over from the other team we had. So that's 23. Yeah, so we've got 23 on the development side. And then we've got like a team of translators we use. Obviously, we don't use them permanently, but there's about 10 people that work on the translations for the game, maybe more. And then we've got a team of two or three guys that do the testing for us. So that's another 13. So now you're up to like 36 people involved. And then on the publishing side, we've got uh three people, one of the PR companies we use, so that's 39. And we've got a second one with another two, and second PR company, so that's 41. And then we got people helping us on the publishing side, so there's another maybe three or four people, five people there. So you're getting up to like mid 40s. The translation thing's a bit cheap really to call that 10 people, but we're kind of like we're getting up close to 40, 50 people
Yeah.
in all the roles that involved in putting the game out. And it's quite a lot. It's not insubstantial. So um coordinating all of that and making sure everyone knows what they're doing can be tricky. Yeah.
Because
It's a
I
bit.
know that you sort of said before that you're like a night owl. So you like stay
I'm a
up
night.
quite
I'm a
late
night owl,
and
but it's really like when you're doing a whole bunch of different roles at the same time, you've got to fire your message out whilst it's in your head and you're remembering it. You're not going to remember it in 2 hours because you'll be on somewhere totally different. You'll be looking at a game design detail, or like how much we're going to pay this guy, or when's that going to come out, and all the different conversations are going around you at once. You've got to be on top of every aspect of running a games company at this level we're at the moment, which is moving towards getting more. Like I said, we've probably got. I'm trying to think on the publishing side how many people we've got. Well, now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's probably Um, maybe about 8 people, different roles of advice on the publishing side now. So we're growing that side now, what we're doing, but it's in its infancy, what we're doing there to grow it from what it was, which was a smaller team. And of course, you don't use everyone always all the time. So with this, it's a lot of people coming into roles. But it's amazing how many people are involved in the game. It's just amazing how many people it takes to put a product out, and that's got to be financed. You know,
Yeah.
no one does it for love only. Even if they do love it, they do it for money as well. So you're making sure that aspect is rolling, and you've got that is quite a challenge. Um, and yeah, and then obviously on top of that, you've got to make a great game. You got to make the game as good as it can be. And fortunately for social soccer, it's getting better and better all the time. No doubt about it. It's getting better all the time. And I think the new development partners we've taken on will give us a lot more strength now. We've got more manpower. We've got more expertise in certain areas we've not had before. So, um, and we know what the game is, and we know what it does, and we know the areas that the game needs strengthening in now more than we did before. So, I think we're gonna within the next year to two, we'll find our feet with this title. I know it sounds like it's taken a long time, but we haven't even released it on a single console yet. We haven't released it on regular mobile yet at all. I mean, it's unbelievable, but we really haven't. You know, we've been
Yeah,
in a bit of
it's
a silo.
I mean, without trying to sound too kiss assy, it's
Mhm.
like when I played the game because I had the MacBook, so I played it on the MacBook,
Yeah.
the Apple Arcade version, and then I got the PC code and I've been playing that. And I will say the player movement, the speed, the control, the actual physics of the ball, the way the ball passes and moves. I think that the game as an arcade, fast-paced football game is
Mhm.
probably the best feeling game I've played ever. And
Ever.
ever, I think it
Yeah.
actually plays better than the old Sensible Soccers.
Wow, that's amazing, David. Can you tell everyone in the world what you just said? That's the message we need everyone to hear. And the new PC version, because you can always refine it. It's like sculpture, you know. So it's better than you've got now.
Yeah,
So yeah, the aftertouch system, the ball powering is better now. The goalie animations are better. The goalie has been a bit of a weakness that we've worked on more this time to improve because when you're working between versions of a game, you tend to work on the bit that's the weakest to get it up to the level of everything else, and then suddenly you'll surpass that. So, for example, on the Social Soccer 25 at the moment, we're working a lot on overhauling the menu presentation to make it look really good because we didn't do much on it for quite a while. So what you'll see with Social Soccer 25 when it comes out, which isn't this version, but the next one, is that the menus will improve significantly. We want to work a lot on what's going on in all the stadiums and all that graphics area, which at one point was the strongest thing in the game. Now because on this current version for 24, like the if you call it 24.5, which is what this console version is. So on PC, we're going to launch an update which is effectively 24.5, and in the consoles you've got the 24.5 content. It's all been about refining controls, um, getting rid of little errors and bugs and things that people didn't like, and just smoothing what we've got. And then on on 25, then we're looking at some small game mode changes, adding some features that are really missing from the game. I won't say what they are. They're obvious ones that you'd expect to have in the game that aren't there. So adding some things back in there that really need to be there. Um, and then looking at the very much what's happening in the stadium with the way that the pitches look, everything's presented, doing a bit of work if we can on the animations and all that kind of stuff. Um, Working to overcome some of these issues that have been pointed out by some of the console manufacturers. And then in the background, you've got even longer tasks which aren't even going to hit 25 because you know to the reason we're working on Social Soccer 25 is to put it out at all this year. We've got to like start to feature clamp in July or August
Yeah,
because then this whole process of going to consoles and blah blah blah. So because it's quite slow, we're very much focused on pushing 24 out, but actually getting 25 done at the same time. Because the console launches come so late, they're kind of like concertinaed in on each other a little bit. So whereas the Steam ones had that proper run, the others haven't. And then beyond that, we're all already looking at Social Soccer 26. So the really, really much longer features that you want to get in, the bigger features, the the stuff which would give you the difference between sensible soccer and SWOS, if you like, which was a long time. Some of that stuff is going to be pushed right back further than 25 because
yeah,
it's just too much to do. So we're kind of like we kind of you kind of find yourself working on multiple versions at once, because you've got all the different versions and all the different formats as well. So you're gonna like jump your mind between, oh yeah, 24 that's not come out yet. But to us, we've already kind of done it, but it's not out yet because it's like been held in this bug fixing phase for the consoles. Whereas 25 is what we're working on really. So it's quite an odd thing. You're kind of working on two versions at once. Um, but yeah, it's fun. I mean, there's a lot more to do with this game. This is nowhere near what I would call, you know, run out of ideas, run out of features,
yeah,
not at all.
yeah. It's the same with like the old FIFAs or EA Sports FC 24, whatever the hell they call it
Yeah,
now. Um, there's a new game every year, but they only get 9 months to do the new game because of
yeah,
how long it takes to do all the bits and bobs. So, but because they've got 300 men working on the
mm-hmm.
game, they can have the 100 people working for the 9 months on the game, and then they have the other 200 or so working in the background for features that'll be added in 2, 3 years.
Exactly. We're even starting to do that. So we need to. There's a couple of very long features. Um, some of them are intricate. We won't start them until 25 has stopped. So some of the ones that are more intense about game modes and menus and that kind of stuff. Um, but on, what a couple of features I can think of, they're just very, very long. It's just one thing, but it's going to take somebody over a year to do this thing
Yeah,
because it's just complicated. So um, yeah, you have to bear in mind that kind of the timeline, and of course, stupidly, we're taking on all these platforms simultaneously, which is giving ourselves a lot of problems. But ultimately, gives you the right. Hopefully, in the end, gives us the right balance when we're out on all the platforms that we can start to see that it's working in those different areas. Uh, and yeah, like I say, when we're partnering with other people at the moment, which is going to give us a lot more power. I'm happy to have a chat with you once we announce that. It won't be
yeah,
too long. Um, and you'll see what we're doing. That we really going to be in for a kind of company that's basically a one game company, or has been for quite a long time. Um, we're going to be in a fantastic position. We're going to be in a position where not only potentially due to the old sensible soccer connections and stuff, have we got a great brand, um, but due to the partnerships we're forging now, we should be able to, to push ourselves to where we want to be. And quite clearly, where we want to be is we don't expect to be competing directly with EA for that number one spot. That's not easily achievable. But the second spot, certainly the third spot, they're achievable. They're like it's getting these stepping stones as a franchise or a brand or a game or whatever you want to call what social soccer is. It's getting those stepping stones and finding which platforms we resonate best with. We don't even now we don't know. We've only really been out on Apple Arcade, which is a very old platform, and Steam without really marketing. We've put almost nothing into the marketing so far. So yeah, we'll still see. We're still in our infancy, even though we're over 8 years old. It's a bit odd, but
so it's like I remember playing the game like on the iPad, and
mm-hmm.
I believe at that time one of the main strengths was the UI, was the big bold sort of like screens, and so you for a touchscreen device, that
Yeah.
was really well. And it might have changed, and if it has, I apologize. I don't play on the PC much because, as you can see, I'm in a little cupboard. It's very
Yeah.
warm in here. I play on the Xbox in the living room. But the when I played the PC version, as I say, the gameplay, all that is absolutely top notch. But I just
Hmm.
felt as though the actual screens before you got to the game, it still felt as though it's designed as a touchscreen game, and it felt too bold and too chunky. It needs to be
Well,
a bit more
yeah. I mean,
streamlined.
yeah. Social Soccer 24 is what it is. I mean, we've not worked that much on the menu side on Social Soccer 24.5, if I could call that, from what 24 was. So as the PC games come out, that's how it is for 24. But on Social Soccer 25, we're doing a complete menu overhaul with every screen. So
Yeah,
it's not worth doing it on both because it's just not worth it. Like you work on 25, which isn't there yet. So we're in this kind of like, this is like I say, the game is basically, you launch at the start of a season, roughly at the start, and then you launch halfway through that season with a patch. So in our 24.5, obviously we've got the half season patch for all the data as well. Uh, but what's weird is because of the delay on the console versions are coming out on the patch, which is meant to be halfway through the season and not the start. So you've kind of like got slightly odd. Although to be fair, it is the Euros. So
yeah.
so we're Euros coming up, so we're going to be in and around that kind of area that we're looking at. We'll give the official dates soon, but we're in and around that area now we're looking at, unless something goes badly wrong. So
So like I say, I mean, I've been clicking around and nothing official. You don't have to agree or anything.
yeah.
But I've seen one release date of the 7th of next month,
Uh-huh.
and the PlayStation it says the 30th of the 8th.
Oh, your research is pretty good.
Right.
Uh, but we are hoping to um we're hoping to draw that well the 30th of the 8th for the PlayStation. It depends on that might be for some people might become a bit sooner, hopefully.
Right.
Depends on how you want to consume it, should we
And
say.
weirdly, it says the Switch version is 29.99, and the PlayStation, the Xbox is 20, is it 20? Yeah, 24.99.
Yeah, so we've actually gone through the discussion about pricing today and how we want to price it. Um, I'm not going to tell you anything about that because we're
Yeah.
literally that has been the discussion today. Um, and we all I can say is all the pricing is under review right now. Um, Obviously, we have to bear in mind the reality with pricing is that, for example, on Steam, everyone buys it when it's on sale anyway. I mean, like,
Yeah.
the reality is, if you look at the stats, only a third of people buy Steam games full price. Uh, Another third only get them when they're on sale, like half price or less, and the other third only get them when they're totally free. So that we have to bear in mind
90% of
when,
my Steam games are bought when they're £2.
yeah, that's it. That's it. So we have to bear in mind that when you announce a price, that the way you sell the game is effectively mostly in the sales when that price isn't being met. So the price is really to me it's really odd. I mean, like I said, this is not my part of the industry at all, but to me it's really quite odd. But we have to make sure that we're balancing this out across all the platforms we're there on, and we've got digital versions and we've got box versions as well of the game. So we've got to make sure that the balance. I mean, obviously, like as you can appreciate, if you do a Switch version with a cartridge in it, that's going to cost more to make than like a digital version of
Yeah.
anything really. So you have to price according to physical media and that kind of stuff as well a little bit. So we have to bear all that stuff in mind when we announce the pricing, like across all the formats. But we had a discussion today on it, and so we're going to verify that actually tomorrow as it happens on the pricing. to see what we're going to do. They got decisions on how we're going to handle the stuff with Sony, particularly at the moment on the issues that they're looking at, and make a decision on that, and then we'll announce to people relatively shortly all the different formats of the game when they're going to come out and what the prices are going to be. Yeah, so it's like as you're speculating on the first date you mentioned, it's pretty soon is the
Yeah.
answer. And you know that when we obviously we need to do some marketing around that, let people know the game's there, tell them about it, do a little bit of PR, and our plan is to put whenever the Switch comes out, to put the PC update at the same time. We've kind of been holding it back to get it at the same time, but unfortunately we've been juggled around by the console stuff a little bit. But yeah, a lot of the PC issues are quite neatly what ones there are, and like you say, it's great to play, but we still just always see the little bits that can be improved. They will be addressed fairly soon, as you can guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we will make our announcements. I think people will be, like I say, happy and entertained by our new endorsement partners and stuff as well. And the game will get a little bit of a facelift and a little bit of a hello. We're here. We really mean business. You know, we're not going away. We're here to we're here in the long run. You know, we've just got the good partnerships in place now to give us the power to be here for the long run. You know, we're not. You know, it's like if people look at a game and go, well, I don't know. Like I said, people going, oh, there's no club badges there, for example, and that kind of stuff, and then they just think you're just going to go away. Well, that's not why we're here. Like you say, we've got, for anyone who's played it, they'll know once you get into the controls, and I guess it helps to have had the sensible soccer background. But we've got, well, you said it's the best arcade football game a minute ago, so there you
It
go.
is. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I must have been about 15, 16-ish,
Mm-hmm.
playing on the Amiga, or was it Sensible Soccer 90? Oh, it was the management game. It was Sensible World of Soccer. That would have been about 95. So they've been about 14, 15.
Swas came out in '94,
Yeah,
so
so they've
that's
been,
I
I'd
had
have
with the
been,
management. It says could it be '95? Yeah, that'd be about right.
yeah, they've
Yeah,
been about 14, 15-ish. And I could play that game and I could win on the easy level. I could win like 11-0.
yeah,
But going back onto it now, I can barely win like 1-2-0. So I must have just put that much time into it when I was a kid that I was
yeah.
that good.
You was right.
And
Yeah.
I've just not played it in 20 years.
It's really hard to get the balance right for difficulty. Actually, I can't remember if these are in the current version that's out there. I just don't remember because there's so many things going around. But the we have now got difficulty levels in there. That's one thing we've added. So that you got an easy, medium, and hard difficulty selection when you play a match, and then the rewards vary depending on
Yeah.
which level you picked. Because it's so hard to get the game playing at a level that everyone is balanced on. Some people just find it too easy, and some people find it too hard. So we've added the difficulty levels, which I think is a major plus um, for the game actually.
So I will just say, so thank you so much for coming on. I've
Yep.
got one final question,
What's that?
and that is when you sold everything to Codemasters,
Mm-hmm.
were you disappointed in how they handled things, or were you at that time happy just to walk away?
Good question. When you sell a company, there's a reason you're selling the company. And the reason you're selling the company is for whatever reason you don't want to carry on as you are anymore because whatever those factors are. In our case with Sensible Software, um, we didn't at the state the industry was in. Bear in mind we sold it in 1999, which is now 25 years ago. Almost exactly 25 years ago to the day, practically we sold it. So we sold it in May, I remember. The we needed to get to a point where we were employing about 60 people to move on to the next level of technology. And at the time, we had an office of 20 and we were already struggling with it. And we were just like, we didn't want to do that. We were a two-man team that set out coming from playing in a band to making games. And suddenly we were being made to like have an orchestra to manage.
Yeah.
And we just didn't want it. And so we, the main thing was the main thing about the sale of Sensible Software was firstly myself and Chris, my business partner Chris Yates, there. We basically just our model was simple. We ran the company. We always made sure there was 6 months worth of costs in the bank, and the rest we just split 50-50. That's the way we ran the company. We just paid ourselves when there was a bit of surplus. And we during those years of earning good royalties from Sensible Soccer and Canada, we'd already taken out a fair bit of money from that back in those times. So when we sold the company, we'd had money out of it. We'd had a real problem time with which we talked about a lot, and the Warner contract and what happened with Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, and the 3D Sensible Soccer, and Have a Nice Day. And we just really wanted to get out in one piece and not ruin what we built.
Yeah.
So we kind of like me and Chris never argued even for one day with each other when we ran that company together. So it's keeping that spirit between us and breaking that out and getting out. So we managed to get out okay. Financially, it was okay for us. It wasn't brilliant, but it was all right. Um, Everything was intact. It was alive. I carried on working with Cody's. Um, I was very disappointed that Canon for the 3 that I worked with didn't come out because I spent a lot of time working on that and it was a really amazing design for its time that would have been groundbreaking. Um, in the same way that I was frustrated with Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll not coming out. Like you work on something that's groundbreaking and then it doesn't get over the line to come out. That's as a creative person is really irritating because you look back in your career at these holes when you didn't do stuff, and it's because you worked on something for 4 years, which never saw
Do
the
you
light of day.
think that if Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll was a different name, it would have had a better chance of coming out?
Possibly, but I mean, the content of it was such that the name change alone wouldn't have masked over the reality of what was in it. I think that I think that it was just unfortunate that we. It was unfortunate that we didn't have a good enough 3D programming team at that time to execute our games, any of our games, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll included. And Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll became a bit like a conversation about what the game should be, with lots of graphics and music and ideas, but not really a running game because the programming was too weak to manage that. And we were piecing it together again with new new people in the team and that. But sometimes in game development, you lose like 9 months to a year. And we've had that with social soccer actually, where some programming goes wrong. You just got to rip it up and go back to the start again. And we were kind of doing that, but we unfortunately we're still in that process when Warner kind of called time on it almost. I'm confident if it had a really good running version of it, playing like a really good point and click adventure in 3D with this funny, offensive but funny content, and you could see it and you could see the context of it, and it was like Viz Magazine or The Young Ones or Spinal Tap, or if you could feel what it felt like because it was running smoothly, I think we'd have been able to sell it because people would have laughed that it got the humor. But you don't laugh at something which is broken and doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's the problem. You can't make someone laugh with this cartoon that's not animating to get the laugh at the end of it. And that's kind of where we were really. So it was very hard to it would have been hard to sell to anyone. The only company that offered money for us for it all were Virgin. But Virgin wanted a UK only release and we couldn't make the numbers work out if it was a UK only release, unfortunately. Um but yeah, I mean it's just as an artist, if you like, as a creative person, it's really gutting to put 4 years in your life in a project that died, and that for me was followed pretty soon afterwards by Canon for the 3, which I put another 2 years into, which also went into a bin. So it's like 6 years, and when you've come off the back of doing, you know, Megalomania, Sensible Soccer, Cannon Fodder, WizKid as the original games, Sensible Golf, okay, that was not quite as we wanted it. But then it was meant to be Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, Have a Nice Day, uh, and the 3D Sensible Soccer, which wasn't good. And it was meant to be Cannon for the Three. And there's just too many things which just dropped, like they dropped. And I guess when you're not a technical person like me, you don't control those technical things. You can't control. I mean, like at the moment, okay, with social soccer, we've got a problem with a couple of these things you got to go through with Sony. They're very, very technical issues. They're not my bag. It's like my
Yeah,
thought is just why doesn't it work? But it just doesn't. And you're working through machines and it just doesn't work. There's nothing you can do about it. You can get frustrated and angry about it, but it doesn't achieve anything. You're not gonna. It's a computer. It does what it wants to do. And I think with Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, I think maybe if the content were different, we could have sold. What's really gutting? Heavy Rain came out as this like new point and click. Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll was basically the same control thought process as it, but we did it 9 years before. And that's what hurts. That we were there earlier, but we didn't finish it to deliver it. For me as a creator, I like to be first, actually. Like some people like to be the 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 best selling or whatever. I like to be the first.
yeah,
I like to be the inventor. I like to be the one who was there innovating and doing that thing and pioneering. And of course, we want to make money out of it. I'm not saying we don't, but that's the most important thing to me. So missing that first with Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll really hurt for the next generation of point and click adventures. That hurt a lot. The content was kind of immaterial. It happened to be about a rock band, but it could have been about anything. Um, and then the Cannon for the Three was like, again, squad based in 3D missions to go and do certain stuff with your Cannon for the guys and having spies and mountaineers and stuff like
wasn't
that.
that one like the individual people that you controlled? They all had individual skills.
Yeah, exactly. So that would have been really, really good. That would have been like you're on some kind of a spying mission with about like three different ways to complete it, and you've got to send your little artillery guy here and your tank here, and then a guy goes in disguise behind the enemy lines, gets information, comes back, those kind of things. It would have been really fun, and I'm sad we didn't get that out. And then what else am I sad about? I designed a game called CCTV, which I made with a company called Nikitova when I was consulting actually in about 2006, 2007. And it was effectively like an animated Where's Wally. So you got all these characters coming out, say, of a shopping mall, and your job was you're a police detective and you had all the CCTV cameras and you had to like on the camera you might catch a guy just nicking something out of a shop on one of the cameras, and you had to see him as he's coming out of the crowd and like grab him and then interrogate him and get information about him. And eventually the game was leading you down a crime ring in the town of you'd find bigger and bigger criminals in certain bars or parks or stuff at night time, and it's all shut down. And so it would lead you to this like you had a wanted list of the 50 top criminals in the town. You had to like strike them all off by using this like kind of Where's Wally catching people and then interrogating them. Uh, it kind of frustrates me that you can have these great ideas. Or virtual TV was a game I made with another team, small team called Legba, and that was a great team. In that a great game. In that game, you were you're like David Attenborough. So you're David Attenborough, the cameraman, running around on an island with dinosaurs on it, and your job is to like make a documentary about the dinosaurs. And you got this kind of script about look at the dinosaurs laying their eggs in their nest and now they're going off to eat the foliage of the trees and look at the beautiful sunset. And you're running around with the cameraman and you got to like get to the right location and then he sets the camera up and then you run in front of the camera and say your lines and then that. But the thing is the dinosaurs are running around trying to eat you all the time. So you're constantly running away from the dinosaurs, trying not to get eaten on camera, chucking them bits to like chucking them bits of meat to just pacify them for a while, catching a shot and then running away. There was a brilliant little thing, and you ended up with these little film clips, and he put together this mini documentary, like I don't know, one or 2 minutes, and that was it, and that's what you ended up with, a little documentary. And then it got judged, a bit like Pokemon Snap. If you remember that game?
Yeah.
So that's the game I wish we could have made it. Like all of those games, like that one, and then the CCTV game with the police, and then Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, and then Cannon Fodder 3. I mean, these are 4 games, and I wanted to make all of them, and none of them came out. And it's kind of that's kind of what frustrates the most when you're making games is that
Yeah.
you didn't make it. When I look at those in that period of time, that's between for me what like 94, I think I started Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. And then if we go right up to the end of CCTV, that's like 2008. They weren't continuously going on there, but those 4 games all happened between 94 and 2008. That's like 14 years. There's 4 games that didn't happen. One of them's 4 years, one of them's 2 years. Another one's like best part of the other two maybe best part of a year each. That's 8 years out
Yeah.
of 14. Just gone into nothing. And then now I realise as you're getting older, like I'm 58 now, you realise you've only got so many years left to be making stuff, and you lost those years. And it's like, I mean, the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, but on some level, it's kind of a little disappointing, should we say?
But yeah, it's like I remember the least said about the Sensible Soccer 98,
Yeah,
which was it's almost unplayable. It is,
it's dreadful. It's
yeah,
dreadful.
it for me it's the camera as you're running through the pitch, the camera can't keep up, so it's like stuttering along, and it just makes everything seem so broken. And the animation is maybe a quarter of what it should be. So you go to take a shot and it just doesn't move. And
It was just, David. It was horrendous. It's like I don't know what to say really. I mean, you sign up to do something with the best intention with the team, and then you take on people who tell you that they're 3D programmers, and you trust them to be able to do the job. Then you find out like 6 months in that the guy's no good. Then you replace him with another guy who turns out that he's not good either. And I think our problem really was that we had we had such a great run on those 2D games for so long. I mean, we'd had like I don't know 8 years pretty much from the Commodore 64 through to the Amiga, where nearly everything went right. So we thought that we couldn't fail. Basically, we was slightly felt a little bit untouchable in that department. And we had no idea the extra complexity that adding 3D graphics in was going to cause. It was a seismic jump, and we thought it's just going to be the same as going from the Commodore 64 to the Amiga. It's only going to be like going from 8-bit to 16-bit. What's the big deal, you know? And then we were getting paid loads more money to do it. We're like, oh, this is good. And then too late we realised that we'd also been lucky to have good quality programmers. Like with Chris Chapman and Julie Jameson and the various other programmers that joined us in those Dave Corn, our programmers from the 2D era. They were all good guys. They knew what they were doing to complement Chris on what he did. And then suddenly we had all these new programmers coming in, and some of them were good and some of them weren't good, and some of them were good at something but not something else. And it's too late. You realise too late when the things go wrong. And it costs you normally it can cost you 9 months to a year for those mistakes. But the
yeah,
problem is that often your contracts and the way they're drawn up with publishers don't give you that 9 months of a year to play with to basically go, that was rubbish, let's rip it up and start from the beginning again.
yeah, a lot of the publishers they like to give you like every 2 3 months, and they need to see the latest build to make sure that they are keeping on top of what you've said that you're doing.
Yeah, they're milestones, and to a certain extent, um, and I haven't worked on a milestone contract for a long time myself, but that they're good for disciplining your progress. When we did Social Soccer 98, we didn't have any milestones at all. And actually, we had a fantastic contract for that where we just got paid every month and that was it. I mean, it was like dream conditions. But in the end, the freedom to like get away with that, if you like, meant that we probably weren't quite disciplined enough because we didn't need to be. Like we didn't have anyone going, hang on, your footballers aren't even displaying on the screen yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like literally, it was like for 9 months, I think, to a year. There weren't any footballers to make a game happen. There was just the screen just didn't display a graphical world that you could do anything with. Because these are the days when we didn't have Unity or Unreal. You had to make your own 3D engine
Yeah.
to make the game work. And so, you know, people were kind of what can be frustrating when you're making games with different teams, depending on how good the team are at employing people, is you feel like a lot of people are kind of learning on the job. Like you've employed them and you're used to making kit games, you're used to like being really successful at what you do. And there's this new technology that's been invented. These guys actually have never seen it before. And effectively, they're learning on the job. Well, if I were making a film and I've got some cameraman in to film something and I'm a well-known film director or whatever, I don't want some kid off a out of like just out of college who's just learning. Sometimes that's what we end up with in games if we're not careful. Obviously, you can control who you're employing well, but in those early days of 3D, anyone could say, "Oh, I can do that. Yeah, I'll have a go at that," and you couldn't really prove it, so we didn't really prove that. And even now, sometimes you get people and they're kind of all right, but they're not focused enough. They're not committed enough. They're just not. They don't have that intensity of.
Just the drive to carry on.
But it's partly the drive to carry on, but partly the pride in your work is so fierce that you
Yeah.
don't put errors into it. It's like a desire to not mess up, and a lot of people, unfortunately, don't have that. Like, I mean, they just lose the focus. They just can't finish. They just don't have that mentality.
Right. So I've mentioned the fact that Sensible Soccer 98 was a disaster.
Yes, you.
And
Thank you.
I think I've told you before, Sensible Soccer '06,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was like Codemasters sort of like
Yeah, yeah,
fully, and
yeah.
you were just there as was that more of a consultancy sort of role to help out and
I was leading the design in that with David Darling. We were doing it together, and yeah, that was done by Kuju. I wasn't entirely in control of the development, but yeah.
but yeah, that one I felt was really good. You know, that again had really good passing movement, really snappy. And if it was me back in the marketing days back then, I would have skipped the Xbox version and I'd have launched it on the Xbox 360
Right.
because the I would have a guess that Social Soccer '06 would have come out the end of like September, October '05,
Yeah.
and the Xbox 360 launched in December '05. And there
Oh,
was
right.
no,
I
and
wasn't
then there
aware
was
of that.
no
Yeah.
football game available for it. So I think that if they'd have released it on launch day for the Xbox 360, I still think that the Sensible Soccer name would still be going.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. I mean, it's like, I mean, for me, if I'm really honest, I'm quite happy to have social soccer instead of sensible. I mean, like, it's such a legendary game for me. It's the most famous game I've made. I'm kind of glad we're not using the same name. I wouldn't feel all you can do is tarnish it, really.
Yeah,
Even if the game's better, people will not like it. It's not the same. I think that, um, yeah, it's okay for me. It's okay for me that Sensible Soccer has had its time, like everything has its time. But we're in the games industry, it's like we don't work on a stable platform at all. We work on temporary platforms that are hard to work with. Um, And a lot of the reason you see so much copycat and Me Too gaming is because they're faster to make. You can get them out on the platform whilst it's still alive. You don't need particularly talented designers when you're doing copycat stuff. You don't even need great. Well, I suppose you need good artists and really good engineers that can replicate and copy well. Um, So yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, Dave. In the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Everything is going to finish at some point. With a bit of luck, it will start. We're lucky with social soccer. We're having such a long start with it. We've been kind of like coming out of the blocks for years and years and years. Uh, and we're still yet to really make that significant marketing push on the game because we haven't really done it yet. I mean, Apple do it a bit for you, and then if they stop, that's it. Rogue never really pushed out for us. We've, like I said, not put really any money into the Steam version yet because too many things weren't aligned for that to be the right time to do it. So once we've got the game where everything, like now, the version we've got now is at a point where the PC version's had 6 months to be perfected and honed and tuned on the Social Soccer 24 content roster. And this console version's coming out in a lot better shape actually than had it come out in November, which you mentioned on the Switch initially, which would have
Yeah.
had it with all the rough edges and stuff which were there in the first release of Social Soccer on the PC. So what is great is it's been able to be honed for people. So I'm really looking forward to the response for people when they get it soon. Let's see how we do. Let's see what you
So
guys think. Do you agree with David? It's the best arcade football game ever.
so where we're standing at the minute is there is the PC version out now.
Yep.
It will be getting a nice update within the next month.
Yep.
And hopefully when that update happens, there will be a Switch version to go alongside it.
It will be. Yep.
And then a month or two after that, then it'll be on the Xbox and the PlayStation sort of stores.
PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and Xbox One.
Sounds
Yep.
good.
That
So
is the plan. That's why this is taking so long to execute because there's so many platforms to go wrong. If they just click a button and they will work, but they don't. Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
the Xbox version comes out, I will have to buy a physical copy so you can sign the cover, so it
Okay.
can go up
Whatever
on
you
the
need.
wall with the other copies I've got downstairs,
Absolutely.
and that'd be absolutely perfect. So thank you so much for coming on. I know I said
Pleasure.
it'd just be a 10-minute chat, and
Yeah.
we're
Well,
here like
it's
an
10
hour and
minutes.
20 minutes later.
It's 10 minutes. It's a bit. Yeah.
But no, I wish you all the success. As I say, the game as it is at the moment is a super fun game to play, and it just needs that time to build to actually get the more content, the more bits and bobs into the actual game.
Yeah. It's very much like the difference between sensible soccer and SWAS. Like, it's really kind of at a sensible soccer kind of level now in terms of content. SWAS was really the polished full article. So, yeah, I just hope that now you've said it's great. I hope we don't mess it up with the changes we made. If you tell me it's not as good as you thought it was before, that would be terrible. You never know when you're doing it, but I'm pretty confident people are going to be happy with it and like it, and give it a spin, get excited by it, play it, and it would be great for people to talk about it and let other people know that the game's there and it's fun and something new in the market as well. Because it's I don't know how many football games there are on the Switch, for example, but there's not that many, actually. Not with proper licensed players. Very few.
Yeah. I mean, like the only game that I've played that is getting on to having decent playability is a game called, I think it's called Natural Soccer.
Oh, I've heard of Natural Soccer. Yeah.
And I think that's just a one guy team or just very small
Yeah.
team. And I think they only do like updates every couple of years, so.
Yeah.
But I felt that had decent, it was a lot slower, it's more tactical sort of, but that
Yeah.
felt really nice. But yeah, I just think that the way football games are at the minute, you have I was going to say FIFA, but it's not the EA Sports one.
Yeah.
You have the old PES, which is now eFootball,
Yep.
and the rest of them that have come out recently. I hate to badmouth him, but Dino Dini's Kickoff Revival,
Uh-huh.
that game was almost as bad as Sensible Soccer 98, in my
That's
opinion.
harsh. Oh, that's harsh. Yeah.
And yeah, I think that actually came out brand new in box for like 9.99.
I mean, Dino's a one-man band.
Yeah,
There's only so much you can do. It's hard now to, I told you how many people we've got on Social Soccer 25 now that we're doing, really. Um, it's hard to do something with one person. It's just, there's just so much to do. It's just an overwhelming volume of work to execute. So, yeah.
yeah. I mean, like I say, I don't like to like badmouth developers because a lot of them they do put their heart and soul into it and they really want the best. Just
Yeah.
sometimes the game just doesn't come together. I mean, you can have like multi-million-dollar games that I mean, I think they were saying that one of the was it the new-ish God of War, the 2018 one.
Hmm.
Sony were worried about it, and it was only the last 3 months of development where it all slotted in together and it became like basically game of the year material.
Yeah, it's like the polish. It's like, I was just thinking then, like, even with the game as we go, you can always see ways you can improve it. Like the game, social soccer is playing really, really well as a two-player game, particularly now. Like single player against AI is good, playing online is good, playing two people in the same room against each other is amazing. Like it's so fast and snappy, and you 100% feel in control of everything you're doing. But maybe the game can even push itself up by just, I don't know, the animations when they score, or the way the ball hits the bar and bounces down, or these little things that you can improve to make dramatic moments without without detracting from the gameplay. But the modern gamer kind of expects certain things, and it's keeping that playability. But all those little bits that I say to the team all the time, like, we're not going to make this game better by adding one amazing feature. We're going to make it better by improving each thing in the game by 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
Then the 1 or 2% add up to like a 20% improvement. It's like it's not it's not there's not massively big wins here. There are and you make gambles. Like we're adding a few features for 25 that aren't in 24. Um, some of them are obvious, and some of them are not obvious. But you just think, well, this just might be the thing which just gets the game to be viral. What our game is not at the moment is viral, and these days in the games market, you need some form of some viral content within the game, purely so that people can share it with other people, so that other people know it's there and want to play it. So we have been we've not got to that very sophisticated marketing stage yet. And what we're doing, we kind of like, I guess because we've got so many platforms we're trying to execute at once, we kind of like sometimes dilute our focus a little bit on that. But it's impossible to do everything, But we're getting there.
But as you say, you want it out at a certain standard and then moving forward, slightly move everything up and up and up.
No, 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 it's like, yeah, if you've got these 10 things and one thing goes up like that, and then you get the next one, then the next one, and you try and balance them all so they all go up, and then you
Yeah.
start there again and you go up again. That's how it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, occasionally you get the odd thing which just is magic and just like transforms the game. Um, and we've got plenty of room. There's plenty more stuff to go with this game. I think that the real thing is getting a strong identity for the game, differentiating it a lot from what people's expectation is, something like EA Sports FC. The thing is, FIFA's had such a long run up there, with Pro Evo there sometimes and not other times, PES. Uh, and people's expectation that football games are only like that. And we've got to, we're still in that phase of establishing, no, you can do it this way. You can have all these licenses, but it can be a bit more fun. It can be faster, and it can be, just a slightly different feeling from it. Get a bit more adrenaline from playing the game. Get a bit of that feeling of, like every second counts, every millisecond counts. When you're turning, and that's that stress you feel, like release, with cortisol or whatever it is in your body that's been released. It actually excites you and makes you want to go back and do it again. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to achieve with the game. As Which is the reason people play sensible soccer still today.
But it's like, for me, the biggest difference between the EA Sports and Social Soccer is one of them. I think looks absolutely breathtaking, and I
Mhm.
can just sit and watch someone play the game. Whereas the other one, I want to play the game.
Yeah.
I think Social Soccer just it's got that playability, whereas the FIFA, it's for me, it's too slow, it's too scripted, it's too trying to look like real TV, and it just
Yeah.
takes that fun away.
I mean, it's made its own. It's made its own set of features that everyone expects, and it's set its own style out. And like you say, it does it extremely well. I mean, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
It does it brilliantly. But it doesn't matter the best cruiser boat in the world you've got, it's still going to turn like it's not going to turn like a really supremely tuned speedboat that you can flick around in the water. That's the difference, and that's kind of what it is. It's like we're something where you get a little bit of a rush out of playing it when you get it right. When you get those stringing passes together and you curl a shot in the top corner and it comes off the bar and hits the floor and you're like, yeah, that was me did that. Um, One great thing about the game now is people never ever blame the controls for their mistakes. It's them. They know that. They're
yeah,
full enough control that they don't do that. So that's something we've cracked, which is hard. I think the ability to tackle in the game has improved a lot. The ability to defend is now really, really good fun. You can get in last minute blocks and stuff like that. Um, I think online the game is very good. I think sometimes the speed of the game, which is very, very fast, sometimes you get a small lag in it. You actually get a few more red cards online than you do offline because you can just click someone's heel more easily because you just lose a couple of frames. It's that sensitive. It's that
yeah.
fast the game. But I mean, we're about to really go places with this thing. When everyone understands who we're now working with and what we're now doing, they're going to understand that we're going to take our game to a different place and we're going to be approaching football in games from a different angle to everybody else. That's what we're going to do next. So
Well, I wish
watch,
you
watch this
all the
space.
best, all the best.
Yeah,
And I am
thank you.
so sorry for taking 2 hours of your time.
That's all right. It's not. It's okay. I'm a night person, like you said. It's just gone midnight.
Yeah.
So, okay,
So
David.
anyway,
Nice to meet
thank
you
you
again.
so much. Thank you.
Take care, mate. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.